Namaste, Hamastu, Hatep, Hotep, Ashe, Shalom, Salam, and all the other many ways there are to say the word peace. Begin all thoughts and all actions by using the all. First of all praise is due to the Most High God. No individual should ever undergo any great or important undertaking without first invoking, evoking, or provoking the blessing from their own Supreme Being. With that being said, welcome back everyone to our latest episode of Introduction into Studying with the Trefoil Social Club. And everyone knows that we begin with a little music, so let's get started.
But down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back. They were standing, everybody in a circle, the whole family, listening to the preacher's words. Sis was crying. She alone held a secret about his dying. Tears falling to earth, and maybe her fault. He was so trusting, God only knew why. They were dusting. He's gonna be the death of you children. It just ain't where it's at. What you're missing, but down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back to back to back to back from. Believe me, sister, don't mean nobody no good. Children, it's hard to listen, but I ain't trying to run your life. Oh, might just seem like one more good time, but down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Again, we want to thank everyone for continuing to tune in and join us on our latest adventures in the introduction and the studying. Before we get started, we would like to give a reminder that Season 1 of Introduction and the Studying is coming to an end. We're about to start Season 2. Not only are we starting season 2 for introduction into studying, we're also starting the Trefoil movie night, Trefoil Bible study, and what else do we have? Oh, the Trefoil Savings Club. So just be sure to stay tuned for all of that. We were supposed to give a definite update on today's episode, but we will on the season finale. So let's get started. The first thing that comes to mind today, give us a moment. Let's see. What is the first thing that comes to mind? We have it. We're going to look up a gentleman by the name of Richard E. Byrd. Okay? Before we do that, let's go through this photo gallery. Okay, Wikipedia. Rear Admiral. Wait a minute. Before we get started, what rank is Rear Admiral? Rear Admiral in the United States is either of two different ranks of commissioned officer, 1-star flag officers and 2-star flag officers. By contrast, in most nations, the term Rear Admiral refers to an officer of a 2 rank. Okay, let's go back. So, Rear Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd. So he was a 2-star admiral. Born October 25th, 1888. Died March 11th, 1957. Was an American naval officer and explorer. He was a recipient, I think that's how you say that word, recipient, of the Medal of Honor. So we have a 2-star admiral who also received the Medal of Honor, the highest honor for valor given by the United States, and was a pioneering American aviator, polar explorer, and organizer of polar logistics. Aircraft flights in which he served as a navigator, an expedition leader, crossed the Atlantic Ocean, a segment of the Arctic Ocean, and a segment of the Antarctic Plateau. Byrd claimed that his expeditions had been the first to reach both the North Pole and the South Pole by air. His claim to have reached the North Pole is disputed. He is also known for discovering Mount Sidley, the largest dormant volcano in Antarctica. But because he discovered it, he could have really named it after himself and called it Mount Byrd. You know what I mean? This is him. Place of burial, Arlington National Cemetery, United States Navy. Years of service from 1912 to 1927. And then from 1940 to 1947. So he took them. So he was enlisted for 15 years, right? And then went back and either re-enlisted or was just working as a contractor between the years 1940 and 1947. And those are some very interesting years. So this is a World War I and World War II veteran and received the Medal of Honor during one of these 2 world wars. So you got the, your movie icon war hero, Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Navy Distinguished Service Medal, Distinguished Flying Cross, Legion of Merit, Congressional Gold Medal. Education, early Navy career. Byrd attended the Virginia Military Institute for 2 years. Spent 1 year at the University of Virginia before financial circumstances inspired his transfer to the United States Naval Academy, where he was appointed as a midshipman. While in the Navy, he suffered 2 injuries to his right ankle. One was by playing football, and the other was while dismounting gymnastic rings during a competition. Although he was allowed to remain at the academy, his injuries eventually led to his forced retirement from the Navy in 1916. On June 8, 1912, Byrd graduated from the Naval Academy and was commissioned an ensign to the United States Navy. On July 14, 1912, he was assigned to the battleship USS Wyoming. During his service in the Caribbean Sea, Byrd received his first letter of commendation and later a silver life-saving medal for twice plunging fully clothed to the rescue of a sailor who had fallen overboard. In April 1914, he was transferred to the armored cruiser USS Washington and served in Mexican waters in June following the American intervention in April. USS Dolphin. Okay, we got a lot of stuff, y'all. Byrd's last assignment before forced retirement was to the presidential yacht USS Mayflower. One thing I find interesting, this is on March 15th, Byrd, much to his frustration, was medically retired on 3/4 pay for an ankle injury he suffered aboard the Mayflower. Shortly afterwards, he was assigned as the naval inspector and instructor for the Rhode Island Naval Militia. Is the currently inactive Naval Militia of Rhode Island, along with the Rhode Island National Guard and the Rhode Island State Guard. It is one of the militia forces available to the governor of Rhode Island. Y'all might want to look into that, but we'll save that for another day. Let's go to early Antarctic expeditions. 1928, Byrd began his first expedition to the Antarctic, involving 2 ships and 3 airplanes. Byrd's flagship was the city of New York. In order to increase the interest of youth in Arctic exploration, a 19-year-old American Boy Scout, Paul Alman Sipple, was chosen to accompany the expedition. Sipple would go on to earn a doctorate degree and was probably the only person other than Byrd himself to participate in all 5 of Byrd's Antarctic expeditions. Just throwing it out there. Let's get to something a little bit more interesting, shall we? As a result of his achievement, Byrd was promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral by a special act of Congress on December 21st, 1929, as he was only 41 years old at the time. This promotion made Byrd the youngest admiral in the history of the United States Navy. By way of his comparison, David Dixon Porter and the other being Arctic explorer Donald Baxter McMillan. Notice it says he is one of only 3 persons, one being Admiral David Dixon Porter and the other being Arctic explorer Donald Baxter McMillan, to have been promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral in the United States without having first held the rank of captain. Byrd, by then an internationally recognized pioneering American polar explorer and aviator, served for a time as honorary National President of Pi Gamma Mu, the International Honor Society in the Social Sciences. In order to finance and gain both political and public support for his expeditions, Byrd actively cultivated relationships with many powerful individuals. These individuals included, but were not limited to, President Franklin Roosevelt, Henry Ford, Edsel Ford, John D. Rockefeller Jr., and Vincent Astor. As a token of his gratitude, Byrd names geographic features in the Antarctic after his supporters. Hold on. In late 1938, Byrd visited Hamburg and was invited to participate in the 1938-1939 German Neuschwabenland Antarctic expedition, but declined. Although Germany was not at war with the United States at this time, Adolf Hitler had been serving as Führer of the German Reich since 1934 and invaded Poland the next year. Within a few months, in March 1940, Byrd was recalled to active duty in the office of the Chief of Naval Operations. The expedition continued in Antarctica without him until the last of its participants left in Antarctica March 22, 1941. Operation High Jump. Hold on. The expedition was supported by a large naval force, designated Task Force 68, commanded by Rear Admiral Richard R. Cruzen. There were 13 U.S. Navy support ships, besides the flagship USS Mount Olympus, and the aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea, 6 helicopters, 6 flying boats, 2 seaplane tenders, and 15 other aircraft. The total number of personnel involved was over 4,000. The Armada arrived in the Ross Sea on December 31st, 1946, and made aerial explorations of an area half the size of the United States, recording 10 new mountain ranges. The major area covered was the eastern coastline of Antarctica from 150 degrees east of the Greenwich Meridian. They said just the eastern coastline of Antarctica was half the size of the United States. Admiral Byrd was interviewed by Lee Van Atta of International News Service aboard the expedition's command ship, Mount Olympus, in which he discussed the lessons learned from the operation. Admiral Richard Byrd warned today that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions. The Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. This statement was made as part of a recapitulation of his own polar experience in an exclusive interview. In 1948, the U.S. Navy produced a documentary about Operation High Jump named The Secret Land. Operation Deep Freeze, in which U.S. Navy Operation Deep Freeze won in 1955-1956, which established permanent Antarctic bases at McMurdo Sound, the Bay of Whales, and the South Pole. This was Byrd's last trip to Antarctica and marked the beginning of a permanent U.S. military presence in Antarctica. Byrd spent only 1 week in the Antarctic and started his return to the United States on February 3rd. Byrd was an active Freemason. He was raised in Federal Lodge Number 1, Washington, D.C. on March 19, 1921, and was affiliated with Kane Lodge Number 454, New York City, September 18, 1928. He was a member of the National Sojourners, Chapter Number 3 at Washington, D.C. 1930, Byrd was awarded a gold medal by Kane Lodge. In 1931, Byrd became a compatriot of the Tennessee Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. He was assigned state membership number 605 and national membership 504-30. He received the Society's War Medal, one for his service during the First World War. He was also a member of numerous other patriotic, scientific, and charitable organizations, including the Explorers Club, the American Legion, and the National Geographic Society. Okay, Coach. What's the point of mentioning all of this? Because this gentleman, Admiral Byrd, is the author of some very unique works, okay? Oh, let's backstep a little bit. He was a descendant of one of the first families of Virginia. Just throw that out there. Let's go. Where is it? What we're looking at? Byrd Memorial on Mount Victoria. A lot of stuff, but not what we're looking for. I think that's what we're looking for at the bottom of the world, but let's backstep. Books. He wrote some very interesting books. One of the most is The Missing Diary of Richard Byrd. Let's go to some of his images. That's a picture of him. This picture look familiar? A cross-sectional drawing of the planet Earth showing the interior world of Admiral, the goddess of Admiral. The hollow Earth is a concept proposing that the planet Earth is entirely hollow or contains a substantial interior space, notably suggested by Edmund Halley in the late 17th century. The notion was tentatively disproven by Pierre Bouguer and definitively by Charles Hutton. This is the reason why we're getting into this. Because even though this topic seems a bit foolish or childish or a bit, how can you say, science fiction, let's see. It says here that Jeremiah Reynolds also delivered lectures on the hollow earth and argued for an expedition. Reynolds went on an expedition to Antarctica himself, but missed joining the great U.S. exploring expedition of 1838 and through 1842, even though that venture was a result of his agitation. Didn't we just read something that says that Admiral Byrd discovered the North and the South Pole in like the 1920s and stuff? But it says here that the U.S. was exploring Antarctica all the way back as far as 1838. Just throwing that out there. They said his son was found in an empty warehouse. The fringe beliefs associated with Admiral Byrd's exploits spin off in a variety of strange directions, all of which seem to belong more in the realm of science fiction than historic fact. For example, some accounts have claimed that the famous explorer, while visiting the polar regions, actually discovered entrances to a vast hollow earth in which lost civilizations with advanced UFO flying craft existed. One book dealing with this nation, the Hollow Earth, the greatest geographical discovery in history made by Admiral Richard E. Byrd in the mysterious land beyond the poles, was published in 1964 by Raymond W. Bernard, a pseudonym for a man named Walter Sigmeister. Bernard's name would appear again on a secret diary attributed to Byrd, allegedly authored in February of 1947, for which Bernard contributed an introduction through the claims made within the document would have coincided with the abrupt closure of Byrd's famous Antarctic expedition, Operation High Jump, which was curiously terminated 6 months earlier than expected. The testimony included with the supposed diary is outlandish at best. Below is an excerpt. We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as we can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running up through a certain portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning and the gyroscope is oscillating back and forth. We think that's enough for today's episode, you all. You all stay tuned for our season finale, episode 19, which we'll most likely be releasing tomorrow. And again, everybody be careful and be safe and enjoy the rest of you all's day.